Welcome back, everyone. As we mentioned in the previous video, we are going to take a quick look at how we actually view these product templates we've been talking about. So here in the UI, I have my test product. I've already brought the order into the system, and we don't need to worry about exactly how all that happens and how that works right now. We'll get into that later as well. But for viewing a product template, one of the easiest ways and the recommended way for doing that is to right-click on an order and then come down to this option that says Product Configuration Browser. So this is going to open up the Product Config Browser that shows you all of the templates currently defined in the system. Now, this is not very representative of what you would see in a production environment, as there would be a significant number of templates that typically display here. But for the test system and for this training, I wanted to keep things really simple, so I really only just have the one template in the system, and I've given that template a name of ttrain-book, so template training for a book product. And that's what we're looking at here. Now, the configuration browser itself is pretty simple. You have an option to refresh what you see in the list, and that's going to be used anytime that you make changes to product templates and you need to see those changes show up here. You'll have to perform a refresh. You also have options to expand everything that shows in the tree, and then you can collapse everything that shows in the tree. So for now, we're just going to do this manually, and I'm going to go ahead and expand the product template that we have built here. Now, as we discussed, you can see the two main areas, or the two main pieces that make up a product template, and that's our pre-batch and our batch. Now, each one of these pieces, or each one of these nodes you're looking at right here, is an XML file. So we have our pre-batch definition, which is contained within a pre-batch definition XML file, and we have our batch definition, which is contained within a batch definition XML file. Now, the nice thing about the product configuration browser is it gives you a way to see these product templates in kind of a hierarchical graphical view. So if I take and I expand my pre-batch, I can see that currently I have one component defined, and that's a component called text. And we can also see that the text component is able to be expanded as well, and when I expand that text component, I see that it has one layout that's associated with it. Now, this layout file also represents a unique XML file, but now this piece in the middle, the component, that is within the pre-batch XML file. So it may be a little confusing at first when you start working with these, but in a very short time you're going to see how this structure works and get very familiar with it. So those pieces right there make up our pre-batch definition. So then that takes us to the second piece of our product template, which is this batch definition. Now, when we expand the batch, we can see it shows one component as well, and it's the text component. And remember back to that analogy I gave with the chef's kitchen. This text component is the component that we are feeding into the batch definition. So we're building out that text component at pre-batch, and then we're using that final built-out text component in the batch process. Now, if we expand that batch component for text, we can see that it is using a 2UP imposition, and this imposition file is also its own XML file. And then the last level that we can drill down to here below the imposition is the layout that this imposition is using. So if this is all really confusing and kind of hard to keep straight right now, don't sweat it. I promise this will get much easier as you go through the process, and once you get to work with one of these a little bit, it really is not too bad at all. So this right here shows you the full structure of this product template. We have a pre-batch and a batch. Within the pre-batch there is a single text component. That single text component uses a layout called basic layout. And then in our batch definition, we are using that single text component that we built at pre-batch. That batch component has one imposition associated with it to impose that component 2UP on the sheet. And that imposition uses a layout called 2UP batch layout ttrain. And that pretty much covers all the things that we are going to use within the configuration browser, or what we're going to see, I should say, within the configuration browser. Now, the next thing that we want to look at is how do we access or make changes to these items that we see here? Well, the easy way to do that is if you right click on any branch within the configuration browser, you're going to see several options come up. Now these first two, just expand and collapse node, are the same buttons that you see up here at the top. The search option allows you to search all of the product templates that contain this value, ttrain-book, because that's what we have highlighted. And you can see that here. It says search for. So it's going to search for that text throughout all of the templates that you have defined within shared config. The next options specify how you want to open these different files. So you can open them within a web browser. You can use the Open With option to select the program of your choice. We have the option just to open the files within Notepad or Notepad++. And then lastly, we have the options to do Show in Folder, which is going to open up the folder location where that configuration file resides. And then you also have an option to just do Edit, which is going to rely on the current edit association for this file type, which happens to be XML. So we're going to go ahead and use Notepad++ because that's our standard kind of recommended product that we use for managing and working with XML files. So note right now that I have the pre-batch definition highlighted. So if I go ahead and hit Open in Notepad++, we get this pre-batch definition opening up. Now this is the most basic of pre-batch definitions, and I'm not going to get into the specifics of it right now and what these different attributes mean and why we're using them. The whole point that we're looking at here is just how do we view a product template, how do we access the files that make up a product template. So we'll go ahead and close that, and you can do that for any branch in here. Now remember, I want to point this out real quick. Remember that I said this piece here, this component, is not its own XML file, but we can still right click and do Open in Notepad++. All that's really going to do is take you to the component within this pre-batch definition. And you can see here we have this thing that shows pre-batch component, that's the tag or the element, and we can see it has a name of text, and that's exactly what we're seeing within Configuration Browser. Now the layout, on the other hand, is not within inside of this pre-batch XML file, it's its own XML file. So if we come down here and go open with Notepad++, that shows our layout that we worked with through the first videos within the series where we were defining layout boxes. So remember, this is the layout where we created that custom box and then we gave each of the different box definitions a color so we could see them show up around the image of the fish. Then for our batch definition, it's all the same things. So we have our batch definition here. We can right click, select the option to open in Notepad++, or as I mentioned, you can select the option to do Show in Folder. Now if we do that, that's going to take us to the location where that batch definition resides, which is right here. And then we have the option just to open in Notepad++ so we can view the information there. Now again, don't worry about the information that shows in this XML file. We're going to go over all of this in very great detail. So you'll get to see how all this stuff works and what each of these attributes mean and how to use them when we go through the process of building out these templates. So that is the configuration browser, and those are the two main methods for opening and working with the XML files that work or that build these product templates. So that's about all we have for this video. We'll end it here, and I will see you in the next video.